Okay, today we are going to explore a key concept that's crucial to our topic strategy, competitive advantage. This concept is like the backbone of our whole discussion. So what is competitive advantage? In simpler terms, it's what makes something, let's say your university, for example, or your business organization different and better from the rest. It's like the special sauce that convinced you to join your university or your employer despite having many other options. Do you remember the time when you were picking your university? So think about it. Why did you pick exactly this university above other? What made this one for you shine brighter or better than the rest? So for example, every university works hard to make its own special sauce, its competitive advantage. Every organization tries to develop its own unique strong position to attract and keep employees or students, for example, like you. This could be anything that makes this organization stand out. And the examples can be manifold. Could be a specialized research center or a special lecture or a famous network of alumni and past students, or something like a real-world learning experience whatsoever. So, do you know what it was? But remember, this competitive advantage isn't set forever. Every organization needs to constantly change, grow to keep up with the world. It doesn't matter if it's the educational world or the business world or some other environment. They need to understand what employees, customers, or students need and want, and also keep up with technologies, programs, content, and for example, also new ways of customer interaction or teaching or whatsoever. That way they can keep offering a product that's not just different but also valuable. And even as a customer, you play a key role in shaping the competitive advantage. Think of your active participation when you are an active Instagram or YouTube user. Everything can boost the organizational overall image and appeal. By being part of this organization, you are adding value to this overall competitive advantage. So let's discuss this concept a bit further. We will look today at how businesses identify their competitive advantages and how they use these to stay ahead of the competition. Let's have a quick look to the definition. Competitive advantage is the ability of a firm to create more economic value than its competitor. This company or this organization needs to have something unique, something what is of a greater benefit, an economic benefit, than the rivals of this company or organizations are offering. For example, let's take Harley-Davidson motorcycles. I guess you know one or two guys who ride such a bike. Harley-Davidson created a brand and a product that's so distinct and appealing that they can generate more economic value than other motorcycle companies. But why do they stand out from others? So firstly, Harley-Davidson has a powerful brand, as you know. When you see their logo, this bar and shield, you immediately know it's Harley-Davidson. This strong image lets them ask for a higher price and a lower churn. Also, when you buy such a motorcycle, you are not just buying a bike, you are joining a community of other Harley riders. This community feels strong loyalty to Harley-Davidson and offers talks and events about their bikes to others. They have also a strong dealer network all over the world. This means customers can get help and support no matter where they are. It also makes the brand more visible. But we must also remember that Harley-Davidson faces some challenges. Their main customers are getting old, and younger people might not like this motorcycle club as much as older customers. So other motorcycle companies are becoming more competitive. This will change the rules at the market and will challenge this company to face the new environment. Okay, let's have a look into the theory of competitive advantage. The difference in economic value can come about in two ways. Firstly, people might find the product you are offering or the way it's presented so appealing that they are ready to pay extra for it. Consider Louis Vuitton, a luxury brand renowned for its exquisite craftsmanship. Timeless customers happy to pay a premium for Louis Vuitton product because they believe they get superior value from their purchase experience. Alternative, company might figure out how to make and deliver a product cheaper than the competitor. This is, for example, a Walmart strategy. They can offer low price because they've mastered cost reduction. But these differences don't just happen. They are born and raised out of the strategic decision set made by the company's management and how well they execute those decisions. So competitive advantage comes down to two key aspects. Either you do something that makes customers favor you as a company, even if they have to pay more, or you find a way to provide your products or service cheaper than your rivals. Here's the point. If all businesses are doing exactly the same thing in the same way, then no one has an advantage, right? And that's the point where the concept of differentiation comes in. A company can get ahead of doing something different by offering something unique, something that sets it apart. Take Apple, for example. Their design style and focus on user-friendly interfaces makes them stand out in a highly highly competitive tech market. But being different isn't the only route to success. Sometimes a company can win by doing the same thing as others might doing it much better. Let's take FedEx as an example. Lots of companies deliver packages, right? FedEx has made a name for itself with its reliable, speedy service. They are doing exactly the same thing as other companies, but they are doing it so well that they've gained a significant competitive advantage. One of the key elements for their competitive position is their empowerment of its employees. Fortune magazine recognizes FedEx as a great place to work. They treat their staff not just as workers, but as problem solvers. Everyone at FedEx tries to find a solution when customers have problems. This entrepreneurial approach allows employees to have more customers and lets supervisors focus on understanding market changes. And here you see, human resources can as well be a source of competitive advantage. Some companies are just better at drawing in talented, skilled and driven people. These people not only help increase preference for the company's products or services, but also contribute to cost efficiency. Okay, let's have a look again at our strategic management process. Do you remember the different components we already mentioned? Evaluating the external and internal environments, making strategic choices, implementing them, and so on. What's our end goal here? Why do we follow all these steps? The answer is straightforward. The primary goal of strategic management is to guide managers in making decisions that lead to two vital results. The first is to create a preference for your company's products or services. The second is to gain cost advantages, allowing you as a company to deliver your offerings more efficiently than your rivals. So, in a nutshell, these differences in preference or cost form the foundation of your competitive advantage. It's what makes you different as a company. But you have to remember there must be something unique about what your company does to have this competitive advantage. You need to offer something distinct. That's where each part of the strategic management process comes into play. Each stage here can potentially help a company create this uniqueness, this difference. So as we progress, consider how each step can help build your competitive advantage. Okay, let's have a look at an example. Apple's iPod. We are going back to year 2007. At this time, Apple published its mission statement that says Apple is also spearheading the digital music revolution with its iPods, portable music players, and iTunes online music store. So this statement outlines a clear strategic objective for Apple at this time: to develop a stylish, highly functional digital music device, right? Now, if we dive into Apple's strategy management process, we can see how they put this plan into action. First, let's consider they conducted an external analysis which showed competing technologies at this time. This analysis revealed that to succeed with a hardware offering, a company also needs a reliable content providership. For example, Omniphone, another company, launched at the same time its product Music Station in cooperation with Vodafone as a rival. This strong partnership could have been a dangerous competition, but somehow Apple succeeded. So let's have a look at the competitive situation at this time. The digital music market in the early 2000s was largely dominated by just a few key players. One was Apple with its iTunes software platform, which launched in 2001. This platform became the market leader in legal music downloads, while other platforms like Napster.com tried to compete by transitioning from an illegal file sharing provider to a legal platform and somehow failed. Okay, let's move to the second step Apple did at this time. They carried out an internal analysis. This internal analysis should have revealed that Apple had the necessary R&D and design capabilities to create this kind of new product as it were built as the iPod. Their marketing capabilities and design capabilities combined with their network to advertising agencies and stuff had a proven track record at Apple. So at this time, Apple was already known for its emphasis on design and aesthetics. For example, Apple was able to focus on creating products with kind of a minimalistic and user-centric design approach. This was in the very early days when other companies just built hardware products in a stack. Also, Apple was never afraid to break conventions in product design. Just have a look at this early iMac version. This desktop computer set new standards at this time for personal electronic devices at home. And even Apple's design process was renowned for its focus on detail. Every aspect of the product, from package to every knob, from the physical design to the delivery model, it was carefully considered and designed to enhance the overall user experience. These design capabilities contributed greatly to Apple's competitive advantage and were instrumental in the success of products like the iPod, later the iPhone, and followed by the iPad. They continue to be a key part of Apple's strategy and brand identity today. Okay, coming back to the example, with this knowledge and those capabilities in-house, Apple made its strategic choices. They decided to develop the iPod and bring it to the market alongside, integrate with the iTunes service. And the result? Okay, Apple, as you know, has achieved great competitive advantage with its products and even with the iPod. Their earnings increased significantly from 2.6 to 2.8 and so on. Apple announced at this time that it was the second largest music retailer after Walmart with 4 billion iTunes downloads. And they didn't stop, as you know. They used the same process to introduce each year a new product line. This shows that carefully executed strategic management process can yield to an economic value, leading to a strong competitive advantage. Remember what we've said early in the lecture? A competitive advantage is when a firm creates more economic value than its rivals. But what does economic value mean? It's the difference between what customers are willing to pay for a product or service and the total cost it takes to produce these products or services. This advantage can come from different sources. For instance, it could be that customers are willing to pay more for a particular firm's product or service, which increases its economic value. Let's have a look at this figure, which is presented in Barney's and Hesterly's studies on strategic management and competitive advantage. Consider we have two firms, firm 1 and firm 2, both competing in the same market. Now, each time firm 1 sells a product or service, it generates an economic value of $180. On the other hand, firm 2 generates at the same time an economic value of $150. What this means is that firm 1 is generating more value per unit sold, which give it competitive advantage over firm 2. And if we subtract the economic value created by firm 2 from that of firm 1, we get the size of this competitive advantage in numbers, which is in this case $30. Now, the source of firm 1's advantage can vary. Suppose firm 1's customers are willing to pay $230 for its product because they see much value in it. On the other hand, firm 2's customers are only willing to pay $200 for its product. If the production costs for both firms are equal at $50 per unit, firm 1's economic value becomes $180, while firm 2's economic value is $150. Even if firm 1's costs were higher, it could still create more economic value if its customers are willing to pay more for its product. Alternatively, let's have a look at another example. Here, customers are willing to pay the same amount, say $210 for the product in both firms. However, at this time, their costs differ. If firm 1's costs per unit is only $30, it creates $180 worth of economic value. But if firm 2's costs are at $60, only creates $150 of economic value. So even if firm 1's customers are less willing to pay than firm 2's customers, firm 1 can still create more value if it has a significant cost. The key takeaway here is that the firm's competitive advantage can be gauged by comparing the economic value it creates with that of its competitors, considering both the willingness of customers to pay and the cost of production. To understand the concept of competitive advantage better, let's have a look from a different angle, from the economic perspective of market structures. You see two different models here in this graph, even presented by Barney and Hesterly in their work on strategic management and competitive advantage. On the right side, you see the graph for a perfect competitive market. On the left side, you see the graph for an imperfect competitive or kind of a monopolistic market structure. Let's also dive a bit deeper into the abbreviations. So MC stands for marginal costs. This represents the costs added by producing one additional unit of a product or service. The key concept here in economics is to determine how much output to produce at a certain point of a quantity. So ATC stands for average total cost. This is the sum of all production costs, including fixed and variable costs, divided by the quantity of output produced. It gives you the per unit costs of production and is used in various decision-making processes in economic decision-making. Q stands for quantity. This symbol typically denotes the amount of goods or services produced or consumed in a specific market setup. So P stands for price. In perfect competition, individual firms are price takers, meaning they accept the market price as given and have no ability to influence it. And the most important curve here is D. D stands for demand. This represents the consumer need to purchase goods or services at various prices. In economic models like this one here, it's often represented by a downward sloping curve indicating that as prices increase, the quantity demanded increases and vice versa. In a perfectly competitive market, the demand curve faced by each individual firm is perfectly elastic. That means it is flat, indicating that they can sell any quantity of the product at the market. And you see exactly this demand curve for perfect competitive market at the right side of this picture. It is flat because the perfectly competitive firm can sell any quantity it wishes at the market price. Different to this, the demand curve on the other side, on the left side, is the demand curve in a monopolistic market. Since the monopolistic firm is the only firm in the market, the demand curve is downward sloping. So let's go back to the perfect competitive scenario. We assume the following. Every firm in the market is identical with identical cost structure. Any extra profits have been competed away, leaving us where the average total cost equals the price. This means no extraordinary profit. The firms earn just enough to keep their capital invested. Demand curve for each firm is perfectly elastic, indicating that consumers have no preference between products coming from different firms. Hence, firms in this market are price takers. They cannot influence the market. Different to this, a monopolistic market function is different. Here, firm faces a downward sloping demand curve, which means that even if the firm raises prices, some consumers will still purchase the product, indicating a preference for firm's product. This is visualized by the hashed area in the graph, pointing to the possibility of above normal profits. One perfect example for this is the Canadian mobile industry. As an example of kind of a monopolistic competition. This market has quite a history dating back to Alexander Graham Bell's invention of telephone in 1876 and now hosts several major firms including Rogers, Telus and Bell. Subsidiaries like Fido, Kudu and Virgin Mobile, they belong Rogers, Telus and Ball respective. This market has some elements of an oligopoly but is usually considered as a monopolistic competition. And now just put yourself into the shoes of a Canadian mobile phone customer. Suppose your monthly cell phone bill went up by $2 Would you switch providers? Probably not. This indicates that the market isn't perfectly competitive, as companies have some power to tweak prices. Therefore, the demand that each company faces will be more elastic than market demand, but not perfectly, right? Let's examine how these monopolistically competitive firms set their prices. Firm in monopolistic competition decides its profit, maximizing quantity and price similarly to a monopoly. Since faces downward sloping demand curve, as we've seen before, the same elasticity revenue considerations apply, and firm will maximize profits where marginal costs equal marginal revenue, but the price is greater than marginal revenue. Finally, let's remember that above average returns are possible in both market structures due to cost structures, but the key insight from this example is the downward sloping demand curve in a monopolistic market, suggesting consumer preference for certain product. This preference could lead to a competitive advantage from a macroeconomic standpoint. So while a firm in perfect competition maintains its place in the market, a firm in monopolistic competition could carve out an advantage by capitalizing on consumer preference, right? So from a management standpoint, companies generally prefer to have a downward sloping demand curve, right? As it suggests that consumers have reference in your product over others. This preference implies that even if the company were to increase its prices, some consumers would still continue to purchase its product, indicating customer loyalty and potential competitive advantage. So that leads us to the idea of temporary and sustainable competitive advantage. You see, when a company finds something profitable or appealing, it's human nature and indeed its business nature that others will want to copy it. This means that the edge of the advantage one firm has might not last long because others will quickly try to catch up. Again, let's have a look at the mobile phone industry and to the service provider industry. When one provider starts offering new features like free nights, weekends, family plans, long distance options or whatever, others quickly follow. Initially, these features might give a provider an advantage short time, making them stand out. But as soon as they catch interest at the consumer side, other providers start offering the same. The advantage fades away. This is reflected in the shape of demand curve. When a company offers something unique, faces a downward sloping sloping demand curve, showing that customers prefer its product. But when other firms start offering the same thing, demand curve flattens out because there's no longer a clear preference for one firm over another. So in most cases, a competitive advantage will only be temporary. The key takeaway here is that firms must continuously innovate to maintain their competitive advantage, right? But let's go a little deeper into the idea of competitive advantages and if they can last a long time. When we think about a very competitive market, we might believe that any advantage a company has won't last long. We might think that other companies will soon figure it out and do the same thing, bringing everyone back to the same level. But the real business world often doesn't work like that, right? This is only theoretically. The main point to remember is that contrary to what traditional economics may suggest, competitive advantages can indeed last over time. For example, through his study of over 400 companies, economist Müller challenged the notion that companies inevitably return to average performance. Actually, companies that initially did well or poorly were likely to continue that trend. Another one, Waring, added to this discussion by exploring why some industries maintain their competitive advantages longer. He discovered that industries of high complexity, where customers need a lot of knowledge and where research and development are key, are more likely to sustain their advantages. Additionally, industries benefiting from economics of scale also tended to keep their competitive edge longer. Lastly, the economists McGain and Portas showed that industry and corporate attributes can lead to consistently high performance. Interestingly, they found that persistently poor performance was often linked to the characteristics of a specific business unit within the company. In a nutshell, competitive advantages can be maintained in factors like industry complexity, innovation, economies of scale, and organizational structure might be crucial to sustain this competitive advantage. The point here is that a sustainable competitive advantage doesn't mean that this advantage will last forever, undisturbed by rivals' actions. Instead, it refers to a company's ability to keep a step ahead by consistently innovating and launching new products or services over time. Have a look at this slide. A sustainable competitive advantage doesn't suggest that a company's edge will last indefinitely. It merely means that at this point, rivals can't duplicate or can't imitate the advantage or provide a superior product or service in the foreseeable future. Of course, this could change and it's quite likely it will, but for now we can't predict when or how that will happen. The key takeaway here is that a company with a sustainable competitive advantage is like kind of a chess player who's always strategizing several moves ahead. While this doesn't guarantee they will win every game, certainly makes them a tough competitor to outmatch. Now coming back to the economic model of perfect competition and another concept which is important to know in the context of competitive advantage. The concept of competitive parity. Imagine you're stepping into the stores like Sears, Kmart, Costco, Walmart or Target and noticing their store brand denim jeans. Most of us don't really see any major differences, right? They are all just basic for us, everyday jeans. This is what we refer to as competitive parity. It implies that the market perceives a company's product as being roughly equal to others. No specific advantage is associated with them. Now let's reintroduce our concept of the demand curve. If a company is at competitive parity, it faces flat demand curve. This indicates that customers see the company's products as neither superior nor inferior to others on the market. They neither prefer these products nor do they avoid them. These products are viewed as average by consumers. Just like with our jeans example, customers don't have a preference for one brand's jeans over another. They all viewed as quite similar. Let's now shift to another concept known as competitive disadvantage. This occurs when potential customers would rather not purchase a firm's offering for one reason or another. But it's not just policies that can lead to a competitive disadvantage. Company might struggle with an unfavorable cost structure because outdated equipment or inefficient technology. Poor reputation can also harm a firm's standing in the marketplace. In short, if a firm or its offerings are perceived as below average, almost anything can become a source of competitive disadvantage. It's crucial for businesses to be aware of these potential pitfalls and work proactively to prevent or overcome them. For instance, some consumers refuse to shop at Walmart due to the company's various policies. They may disagree with Walmart's stance on labor rights, or they might be concerned about the impact Walmart's expansion on smaller towns and businesses. Among these consumers, Walmart is at a competitive disadvantage.